Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello everyone, welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored to welcome Linda Burhans, the gal who cares for caregivers, as well as the host of Caregivers Talk Radio. Welcome, Linda. How are you?
Joyful and grateful, and so glad to be here today.
Our pleasure, Linda. Well, I want to kind of start out for our viewers and listeners who may not be familiar with you. If you could kind of share a little bit of your backstory, how did your caregiving journey begin?
So I moved down to Florida from Long Island, if you can't tell, in 2000. And I was very close with my mother. I would go back to visit her like every 2 or 3 months. And when I would go back to visit her, I was finding that she was being more isolated in this big house, just staying in one room, not a lot of good food in the refrigerator. You know, you could write your name in the dust. And my sisters and my brother tried to convince my mom to move near one of us or buy one of us. And you know the story. I've lived in this house for 48 years. I'm not going anywhere. Well, a few years later, my mother needed a $9,000 chimney repair. My mother did not have $9,000. All the money was in her house. So she called me up and she said, "I surrender. Find me somewhere to live." So I flew into New York the next week and with my sisters, and Mom said, "Just go find her a place." I'm like, oh my goodness. So in her town was just one single family homes. The next town was a large senior community, but the waiting list was 2 years. But the next town, they had just built a brand new assisted living community and independent living community. And we went in there and we thought it was a fabulous place. There was 20 ladies waiting online to go in to see a Broadway show. You know, things were happening. And we went back to the house and tell my mom that we thought it was a good idea and that she could have her laundry done there and her hair and everything. And all of a sudden she stood up and she said, "I'm not moving there. I'm moving to Florida."
Oh.
So I was very excited. So she moved down here in June. In October, she was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. Not the deal. Well, it also turned out that my mother had dementia, but I didn't know my mother had dementia. She was a little goofy like me. When it came to the chemo, we didn't think it was a good idea, but my mother wanted to try it. So we did 2 rounds and my mother was out like a light. And we're like, we're not doing this anymore. Well, you know what you put in your head? The dementia served my mother very well because she told everyone she was cured.
Okay.
So I don't know if she thought she was cured, she wanted to be cured, or she wanted everybody to think she was cured. But you know what you put in your head?
Yeah.
We had 18 months of bliss. I was with her every day, except one day I went to jury duty. They wouldn't let me bring her. But she made up with people she needed to make up with. We visited, we just had a fabulous time. And then she became very ill. And I moved in with her, and I tucked her into bed one night, and she said to me, "Good night and God bless," which she said to me my whole life. I thought that was going to be the last time I was going to hear it, though. And that night I prayed in her living room, "God, please give me just a little bit longer." And when she woke up the next morning, she looked fabulous. So I started writing my book, Good Night and God Bless.
Okay.
And I wrote through the last 3 weeks of her life and my grieving process, and then I reconstructed the previous 18 months for my calendars and my journals. And the book was published right away. And when I went out to promote the book, every time people came up to me crying that they needed help. And no one told me squat when I took care of my mother. And I'm not a dumb bunny.
Right.
So that was like 5,000 support groups, radio shows, speaking engagements. Because I just find that your caregiving experience can be the most horrific experience of your life or close to beautiful, depending on how you handle it. And that's what I want to help the caregivers with.
Yeah. And I don't know if you find this, Linda, but sometimes people will say it was the most horrific time, but once that time ends and they reflect, then it becomes the most beautiful too. They may not see it in the moment, right?
Yeah, but I would prefer them to see it in the moment.
Exactly. And you talk about the AAA, the AAA dilemma. What exactly is that mean?
I'll say caregivers don't ask for help, they don't accept help, and they don't acknowledge themselves. So what happens is you go over to your neighbor or your friend and you'll say to the caregiver, is there anything I can do to help you? And the caregiver says every time, no, I'm okay,
Right.
which is usually the furthest from the truth. Well, first of all, I think by asking them, what can I do for you? You already put one more thing on their list. Like, how are you going to help me? Are you going to bathe my mother? I don't know how you're going to help me. So I suggest to caregivers that take a little bit of time and write a list of some things that you can have help with. You're not the only one that can mow a lawn. You're not the only one that can do laundry or go to the supermarket. And when you make that list and you show it to your friends right away, they're going to be, I could do that on Tuesday. I could do that on Thursday. I found when shortly after my mother died, I was in the supermarket and I met a friend of mine. She said, how are you doing, Linda? And I said, I'm okay. And she said to me, I'm sick of hearing that from you. And I have to tell you, when you took care of your mother, you stole my joy. I said, what?
Wow.
You said, I could see you swimming in quicksand. And every time I asked to help you, you said, no, you're okay. And you never gave me the privilege to meet your mom.
Mm,
And I think caregivers need to think about that
yeah.
because people ask and they want to help you. And if you keep saying, I'm okay or no, then they stop asking because they don't want to get in your way or anything. And then you're home at night crying, I have to do this all by myself. But you said no to all the people that wanted to help you.
Right. That's an excellent point, Linda.
Yeah,
Excellent.
there was a woman that was in my support group for like 2 years. And one week she came to the support group and she goes, I let my neighbor mow my lawn. And we were like, yay. And she said, but I told him he didn't have to edge it. Like,
Save that for next time.
yeah.
One thing before we go on, because I also want to get to the Connecting Caregivers Conference, because I think that's
Mhm.
just something so valuable that you're going to be hosting. And you do this annually. It's a big event. This year it's going to be May 6th, 7th, and 8th.
I
But we'll
actually
get
do
to
it twice a year.
twice a year. Yes, biannually. We'll get to that in a few moments. But
Yeah.
I just feel like you do have the experience and you have the insight to really help support family caregivers, which is what we're all about here. What was it though about your experience caring for your mom? Because I assume you never envisioned, how many years ago
Yeah.
was it that you were caring for your mom?
10 years.
Okay, so 10 years ago. So I'll say 20 years ago, if I said, hey, Linda, what are you going to be doing in 20 years? This probably wouldn't have been in your top 100, right?
Yeah.
What was it about that experience, though, that propelled you to doing what you're doing now for family caregivers all these years later?
It was one of the closest times I ever had with my mom. She would trusted me implicitly to take care of everything for her. And I was able to take care of her the way she took care of me when I was a child.
Mm,
It was one of the most loving experiences I could ever find, but I had to change a lot of stuff with my business, with my family, to spend that time with her because I knew that we only had a certain amount of time. So what am I going to do with this time? Am I going to make it the best time or am I going to make it the saddest time? I wanted it to be the most joyful time. I wanted my mother to find the joy in whatever we could find and just laugh and just have fun. Because caregiving is tough when people are sick or when you have to change their diaper or when you have to feed them or whatever it is. But there still can be a lot of joy in it. I think we get so involved in the tasks of the medicine, the pooping, the peeing, and everything that we forget about sitting down and just holding mom's hand,
yeah,
sitting down and just talking to mom. And I find another thing that's so very important too is we need to find purpose for our loved one. People say to me, Mom's just sitting in the chair. She doesn't do anything anymore. Well, you took away everything from her. Because if I make the fruit salad, I can do it in 10 minutes. If mom makes the fruit salad with me, maybe it's going to be a half hour. But who am I serving?
right,
Who am I serving? So I think we can find that time and we can find that joy, but we need an education and we need to take advantages of the resources that are here.
right,
And we need to invite other people into our circle. You know, on the back of my business card, it says the person I'm with has Alzheimer's and dementia, may not understand clearly. You know, you've seen that saying, please be patient. And a woman came to my support group one day took a couple of the cards, and then she called me the next day and she said, "Could I have 14 more cards?"
Wow.
Sure, sure. So I leave cards in an envelope by my house and she picks them up. And she came to the next support group and she said, "Those cards saved my life." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, I live in a mobile home and my husband is starting to wander in people's yards.
Mm,
And when he walks the dog, he's not cleaning up the poo. And everyone's looking at him very angry." So she took one card and gave it to every neighbor.
wow.
And the neighbors said, "He can come in our yard. We'll clean up the poo. Maybe he would like some lemonade." So now she has a whole village there helping her
Right.
and helping her husband because many times I say to caregivers, you may think you're the bomb caregiver and only you can do it. But I think many times the person you're caring for is saying under their breath, "Would you please go away and get somebody else here and give me a break?"
Very true. Yes. Very
You know,
true.
there was one woman that said to me, "I've given up everything with my husband's dementia, but I don't want to stop going to church. That's my last thing. I don't want to give that up." She said, "So I've been listening to you for a long time, Linda, and my neighbor is Jewish." And I went over to him and I said, "Do you think you could hang out with my husband on Sunday when I go to church?" And he said, "I would love to do that." She said, "So the first Sunday I ran to church, I went to church, I ran home, and when I got home, they were playing dominoes and they said, 'We don't need you here.'" So now she has 3 hours. They give her 3 hours every Sunday morning to go to church and have some time. And the neighbor gets to see her husband, and her husband gets to see the neighbor.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Absolutely.
Win-win.
Yes. Absolutely. You know, if I was to put you on the stand and I said, Linda, there's only one thing you can suggest. What is the most important thing that caregivers need to know? What would your answer be to that?
Accept help
Yeah.
and be in the moment.
Hmm.
And be in the moment. Enjoy your loved one. And maybe sometimes that's difficult. I have people contact me and say, "How do I take care of my mom when she didn't take care of me?"
Mm,
That's a tough one.
yeah.
I remember a woman called me about a year ago and she was crying and she said to me, "Linda, my mom was the perfect mother until I was 10 years old. And then she got in a car accident and she got addicted to opiates."
Mm,
And she said, and then she was the worst mother in the world. She brought strangers in the house, the whole deal. So as soon as I was old enough, I got out of the house. She said, fast forward 25 years later, my mother has Alzheimer's and I have to take care of her. She said, she's mad, I'm mad, she's mad I left. She doesn't understand a lot now. And anything I was suggesting to her wasn't panning out. And one morning I went out on my dock and I was like, "Dear God, please help me." And I called her up and I said, "Julie, can you tell me about a fabulous time with your mother?" And she said, Linda, when I used to come home from school, my mother used to brush my hair every day. And she still has long hair. So I said, "Julie, do you think you could go to your mom and say, 'Mom, no one ever brushed my hair the way you did. Can you brush my hair?'" And her first response was, "You're pushing it, Linda." Well, now, every afternoon at 4 o'clock, her mother brushes her hair. And she said, "I get to be the little girl, and she gets to be the mom. And we're trying to forget about that other stuff."
yeah. Yeah.
Win-win.
Win-win. Absolutely.
Win-win. We can't do anything about what happened before. We need to look at what's happening today.
Yeah.
We're taking care of people that we love, truly.
Right. Yeah.
We need to enjoy that. I
Absolutely.
feel
'Cause
privileged that I got to take care of my mother.
yeah. And it doesn't last forever, right?
No. And I'll tell you, my mother loves it. I'm talking about her every day.
You found your joy on your caregiving journey, and you helped that woman with her mother, and maybe find some joy that wasn't there. How do you recommend caregivers find joy on the journey? Because it's ups and downs. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, and there are more difficult days ahead, and there'll be great days ahead. But how do you kind of keep in focus to find that joy so that you can sustain yourself on the journey?
Well, I think you need to start your day out with joy. So I also had a caregiving experience. I had custody of my grandchildren for 10 years, which was not an expected kind of thing. And I was waking up in the morning angry. Like, is this going to go on forever? What do I do? I don't understand Common Core math. I don't know what an Xbox is. And I said, Linda, you can't be waking up in the morning like this. So for 14 years, every morning I walk my dog. I get up early. I walk my dog. I go out on the dock, say my prayers, say, tell me what to do today, because I'm just a vessel. I don't have a clue. And then I take a picture of the sunrise or a bird or a flower. And I post it on Facebook and say, Good morning, Seminole. And I also separately text it to 40 people with a Bible verse every morning. My nieces, my nephews, my sisters. So every morning I wake up looking for something beautiful, find it in 5 minutes, and get to share it for free. And now they're putting it on the news channel here like 5 days a week. Linda from Lake Seminole. But how simple is that? And when you start doing those simple things and you start out those days with those simple things, people say, Mom can't do anything. Well, can Mom walk? No, Mom's in a wheelchair. Can you push Mom? Yeah. Everybody has a phone with a camera on it. So can you go out for a little walk with Mom every day and take a picture of something beautiful? And then when you start doing that, you see more beauty that you didn't see before.
Right.
I walk across a parking lot and I see one little yellow flower growing through the asphalt. And what a miracle that is.
Right.
So I think if we do that, and you know what? I set timers on my telephone 3 times a day. Stop, breathe, and say a prayer, Linda. Because we get so involved. I mean, I find it very funny when I have to tell caregivers to breathe.
Yeah. So true.
But I think if we get in those habits and we do that, and I think we just have to figure things out. So I love this story. There's a gentleman that takes care of his aunt. And his aunt was having a lot of problems with sundowners. And his aunt was having a lot of problem with eating. She didn't really want to eat. So every afternoon, right before sundowners, he makes a little tiny petite sandwiches. Like you would have like at a little party. And he gives her some like salsa water. And they dance for 1 hour to
Wow.
big band music. So she has her little snacks, and the neighbors say, we see them dancing through the window, and it gives us such joy. So we just have to take the time to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, I think we get to the point sometimes in our caregiving experience that we're not really thinking about them as a person. We're
Yeah.
just thinking about somebody that I'm taking care of,
Yeah.
or somebody that I have to do for. I can't imagine, I had the thought a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting in my bedroom, in my recliner, very nicely reading a book, and I thought, what if somebody had to come and take me to the bathroom? If I couldn't do that by myself.
Right.
So I think we have to put ourselves in their head too. And like I said, I think we need to find a sense of purpose for our loved one.
Yes.
So for instance, my mom, she would be over at my house. She'd be like, Linda, is there anything I can do for you? I go, Mom, there's some laundry in the basket if you want to fold it. And she'd say, I don't want to do that. 15 minutes, a half hour later, she would ask me, is there anything I can do to help you, Linda? I'd be, there's a couple of dishes in the sink. I don't want to do that. Well, my mother was a legal secretary, and that was a big deal in her day.
Yeah.
So I went to Staples and I bought 500 envelopes and I printed out 500 phony letters and 500 phony labels. And I was like, Mama, if you could just put these in the envelopes for me and put the stickers on, it would help me so much with my business. And it took her 1 week of watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy as she did it. When she handed me that box with the envelopes, some of the stickers were upside down, some weren't right. She was so proud.
Right.
It was the best $20 that I ever spent.
Yes.
She was so proud. After that, I got her once a month, a little gig at the Chamber of Commerce, helping them with collating their business letter. And she was just so happy because she had a purpose.
Had a purpose. Yes, we all need purpose. Yeah, we tell families, Linda, that we serve, one man was a president of a bank, but he started out as a teller, as a high school graduate. And his dementia, he was going back to that time. And he always thought he had to get up and get to the bank and open up his window and this. And so, and it just caused a lot of frustration. He would get angry because the family, oh, you don't work there. And it took them a while, and us, suggesting, just get a big tub of coins, buy all the rollers, and tell
Yeah.
him, you know, the bank asked him to do, oh, and like you with your mother and the envelopes. I
That's what
mean,
one caregivers does. She gives her the coins every day because she used to be a banker.
yes, and
If you
they would
if
just
you can find something that they used to do or something that's familiar with them. So one day a woman came to me and she said, my mom passed away and my dad's just sitting in the chair. And they were together for 48 years. They did everything together. She goes, I don't know what to do, Linda. She said, I went to the doctor and the doctor gave him an antidepressant, but he's just still sitting in that chair. So I said to her, tell me something he used to do when he was younger. And he used to build these big ships with all these little pieces and everything. And I said, can he still do that? And she said, no, his hands are a little arthritic. I said, you want to try an experiment? She said, yeah. I said, go to Michael's. They have wooden cars. There's maybe 8 pieces to put them together. They're big. I said, buy a dozen of them. Ask Dad if he could paint them and put them together because I know a nursery school that can use those. Well, before he passed away, he had made 76 dozen cars and boats
wow.
and sent them to different schools, and kids were sending him thank you notes. And I said to her, oh my goodness, must have got a little expensive, huh? And she said, guess what, Linda? It was cheaper than what I was paying for that antidepressant.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible.
You know,
Yeah.
we had another woman who the caregiver came to me and she said, my mother just follows me around the house all day. If she would just sit down for an hour or two. So I said, can I come meet your mom? And I went and I met her mom, and her mom was 92, and she used to be a teacher. So first we talked about all the rotten kids, and then we talked about how teachers don't get paid enough. And every Monday morning we give her a big piece of poster board and a bunch of magazines. And we tell her that next week the teachers are teaching the kids about flowers. So we need you to cut all the flowers out of the magazines and glue it on the poster board, and you can't have any white spots. And it takes her 2 hours, 5 days a week to finish it. And then her daughter started bringing it to the school,
Mm.
and kids started writing thank you notes.
Yeah. You know, before we go on, I'll just about kids and schools and, you know, our loved ones. You know, our school, we do a service project week every year, and they'll take several classes over to the nursing home, and
Yeah.
you know, they'll take the kids that can play an instrument, and it is, I mean, it is so good not only for the students but for the residents, and for the residents and the students. And I just don't know why we don't do more of that in our schools, you know, because look
Because
at
we
the,
don't want our students and our children to be afraid of aging.
yeah, well, there you go. That's probably a big part of it. But I mean, a lot of these people don't have a daughter or the son or the spouse looking to you or to whoever for
Yeah.
advice. They just, there they are, and that's where they stay, you know, and that's the sad part, you know. So thank you for all the incredible work you've been doing for the last 10 years. That brings us to one of the big reasons why you're here today, the Connecting Caregivers Conference. I want to start first with, how many have you done so far? I know you do them biannually, so you know
This
how
will
many?
be this will be number 8.
Number 8. Wow. Okay.
I feel the conferences were a gift of COVID
Okay.
because it came to be COVID and I couldn't do live support groups. I couldn't do live speaking engagements, but I didn't want to just leave my caregivers flat, you know. So we started. It was an adjustment in the beginning, like with the support groups on Zoom and everything. But once they got it, they got it. So the conference is a 3-day conference. I have 18 speakers over 3 days. It's totally free for caregivers. And I don't expect anybody to sit there for 3 days and watch it all because I am producing it and I can barely do that. But anyone who registers within 30 days, they receive all the videos of the conference. And every conference, we have an elder care attorney, we have hospice, we have things about caregiver burnout. There's different topics for every conference. So the next conference is May 6th, 7th, and 8th. My website is connectingcaregiversconference.com, and registration will be open on March 15th. It's so good for the caregivers because they don't have to leave their home. They don't have to find someone to take care of their loved one, and they can watch it whenever they want. Because this is what I hear between my conferences, my radio shows, or whatever. Oh, I was listening, Linda, and it was wonderful until mom had to go to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
But now I can listen to it later, or I can have my sister listen to it. So we get about 1,000 people at the conference, and then after in YouTube, there's thousands and thousands of views. And it just brings me such a joy that I'm able to find that information, bring that information to the caregivers.
Yeah. And, I also want to mention again and really stress there is no cost. It is free. You're not asking them to pay anything. You're just doing this to support them. We know a lot of the speakers that will be speaking there or who have spoken in the past. A lot of great information and resources. I want to ask you, though, Linda Burhans, do you have a favorite moment out of all the conferences that you've hosted that really has stuck out to you where you're like, wow?
Not a particular moment, but when I get an email after the conference that says, I think I can go on now. Oh, I just got goosebumps saying that.
Yeah.
When someone says, I was like, it was so tough for me, Linda, but I've learned some things here and I think I can go on now. Or I think it's better. Or, that's the big thing. The light bulb all of a sudden lights up. And they can see because we have so many fabulous speakers that bring so much information that maybe there is a better way to do this.
Yeah.
That maybe that is a better way. And it just brings me such joy. And my caregivers, you build a relationship with your caregivers. They're like my family. If I have somebody in my support group for 5, 7 years, I know everything about them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I found what has happened with that is, so their loved one passes away and they still come back to the support group because they want to help and they want to share what they've learned. Well, it's not a grief support group, it's a caregiver support group. So what I've done now is I've started a mentor system. So if your loved one died of Parkinson's and a new one comes in the group and their loved one has Parkinson's, she mentors her. They get to talk in between support groups. They can maybe meet, or whatever. Because I'm not an expert on Parkinson's. I'm an expert on caregiving.
Right.
But they are. And the most fabulous thing is it gives the person whose loved one has passed away a new sense of purpose. Because I've been doing this 24/7 and now my loved one is gone. Oh,
They're helping each other. Yeah.
What do I do now?
Right.
So that makes me so excited when I see caregivers who have been on the journey who still come back and they still want to help other caregivers. It's just so, I don't know, it's very rewarding.
It is. Well, and yes, and I would say, like, for us, we've been in business for about 13 years with our home care company, and All Home Care Matters and the other shows that we produce are a result of COVID too. A lot of good has came from COVID, even though there was a lot of bad there. But one of the most rewarding things for us, it's not a business, Linda. We really do this because we've been on the other side. I cared for my father and, that whole thing. And you build such a close, intimate relationship with these families. It's not a business. It is a calling. You're speaking how like these caregivers want a loved one, and I'm sure you've been to many as well. When the family asks you, we want you to be at our funeral because our dad just thought the world and you've done so much for our family, and you're getting mentioned for all the work and support you gave this family with their dad or mom or whoever the loved one happens to be, there is no value you can put on that. That is making a true impactful difference. And that's why we do, that's our purpose, right? Just like it's yours, I'm sure.
I'm also a minister.
Okay.
So many times when a loved one passes and they don't have any religious affiliation, they ask me to do their memorials. Well, if you've been in my support group 5 or 7 years, I know all about you. I know that when you had an opportunity to get a promotion at your job, that you decided not to take it because you want to be home when your kids got home from school.
Yeah.
And the kids will say to me, how did you know all that stuff? I'd be like, well, I've been hanging out with them for a while. But it feels so good to know that. And it feels so good sometimes just to bring information to them that they forgot about. Right. Or they don't remember, or maybe they didn't even know about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a privilege for me too, to walk those paths with those people.
Yes. Yeah. There's nothing better. Well, Linda Burhans, the gal who cares for the caregivers with love, laughter, and lessons learned, and the host of Caregivers Talk Radio. We're going to have it in the show notes, Linda, also up on the screen. It'll probably be up a couple of times. But for those that aren't watching and are only listening, why don't you say your website one more time for them so they can register for the conference?
It's Connecting Caregivers Conference.com, or you can go to lindaburhans.com and it'll lead you to that.
Wonderful. And are you on Facebook or any of the socials?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, all over the place.
Make sure
it's
to
very
go
funny. When I was telling you about the Good Morning Seminole pictures, right? a couple of weeks ago, a FedEx guy comes to make a delivery here to me. And he says to me, "Do I know you?" I go, "I
Oh,
don't know," because I'm around, you know. And all of a sudden he looks and he goes, "Oh, you're Linda from Lake Seminole." I said, "Yeah, I am."
oh, that's wonderful. Oh, Linda, you are definitely the gal who cares, and you're spreading so much joy and support for those that desperately need it. And the crazy thing is, like I'm sure you experience, you're helping people you'll never even meet or don't even know just by the
Yeah,
work you're doing, and that too is very rewarding. So we appreciate you. We look
thank you.
forward to the next 10 years of conferences, and we're here to help support you however we can. So, Linda Burhans, until next time, have a great day. And I'm going to let you sign us off because you have a way of doing it.
Have a delicious day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to Linda Burhans for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.